November 2025. Amidst the white-covered forests of Shebekino, Belgorod province, a shipment of top-secret military equipment from China worth over $80 million is being quietly transported by Russia to a staging center. Moscow believed this area to be completely safe. But high above, high-altitude UAVs from the Aero-Razvedka Air Reconnaissance Unit had been monitoring every movement for hours. A daylight ambush was about to take place in an area Russia considered impenetrable. 8:13 a.m., the unit began the most critical phase of preparation. Initial data from the UAV system revealed Russia's dispersal tactic. The strategic cargo was divided into 3 convoys, each traveling in a different direction to mislead and dilute Ukraine's tracking capabilities. However, Ukraine did not fall into the trap of chasing each individual route. Aero-Razvedka understood that no matter how they split up, the 3 convoys would ultimately have to converge on a common area before reaching their final assembly point. Therefore, instead of spreading their forces thin across 3 fronts, they concentrated all their preparations on a single convergence point, the area around an abandoned warehouse located about 5 kilometers from the final rendezvous point, a location considered both discreet and topographically favorable for remote surveillance. Here, Ukraine quietly established a surveillance and neutralization position. Remote support equipment was hidden in the terrain, with observation posts arranged around the key area. In the air, a network of low-altitude and high-altitude UAVs was deployed in parallel. The low-altitude ones closely followed the road, while the high-altitude ones monitored the entire area from multiple angles. When combined, they formed an invisible net, ensuring that all enemy movements were recorded. But for the 3 convoys to penetrate deep into this area, Ukraine needed more than preparation. They had to make Russia slow down, narrow the distance between themselves, and inadvertently move closer to each other. That was the goal of the diversionary campaign. Aero-Razvedka deployed small UAVs and electronic warfare equipment to remote outposts, places not located on the main transport axis. There, they create strange signals, slight disturbances, enough to attract attention but not pose a direct threat. Each signal is like a small spark in the darkness that forces Russian forces to monitor, to deploy personnel, to divert attention away from the area Ukraine is really interested in. The crucial moment has arrived. As 3 Russian convoys approached the convergence zone around the warehouse, the surprise attack order was given. Dozens of suicide UAVs were launched like deadly arrows. Significantly, Russia had only just detected reconnaissance signals and was trying to identify the threat. The surprise was absolute. The drones immediately slammed into the engines and cockpits of the lead and rear vehicles. Russia was completely stunned and paralyzed. They did not have time to deploy shoulder-fired anti-aircraft weapons or organize any defensive formations. The convoy commander's only reaction was to abandon the intention to fight, switching to calling for emergency assistance and reconnaissance helicopters, a desperate plea for outside help. Captain Alexander, witnessing the enemy's paralysis and desperate pleas for help, realized that Russia had placed itself in a completely passive position. Without hesitation, he ordered an immediate attack. Continue the killing blow. 8:57 a.m. The attack entered its destructive phase. Instead of using large-scale artillery, Ukraine opted for high technology and precision. FPV drones continue to weave at low altitude, completing the formation lockdown by destroying engines and cockpits, creating an immobile barrier at both ends of the convoy. Large-caliber anti-material guns were deployed to disable tires and drive systems, ensuring that no vehicle could roll. Immediately, Special Forces units fired Anlaw anti-tank missiles. They did not target the armor, but were fired precisely into the cargo compartments. The goal was to create intense heat waves and pressure inside the truck compartments. This tactic aimed to melt, deform, and short-circuit the electronic components inside the $80 million shipment, causing complete functional damage. The shipment was rendered unusable on the battlefield. While the missiles completed their destructive work, any feeble attempts at resistance from the Russian escort forces were suppressed by firepower. Tankiski teams, positioned at strategic angles, created an impenetrable ring of fire. The remaining suicide UAVs were used to clear the battlefield, targeting intact armored vehicles and military equipment. This was not only to destroy, but also to psychologically destroy and deter any attempts at recovery. Support forces and aircraft, including Mi-8 transport helicopters and Ka-52 reconnaissance helicopters, arrived in the area but were unable to intervene. Ukraine maintained an aerial drone surveillance ring, turning the area into a no-fly zone. The presence of high-speed reconnaissance UAVs threatened any low-flying aircraft, forcing them to keep their distance. More importantly, Ukrainian firepower destroyed vehicles on the secondary roads leading to the intersection, turning them into impassable metal obstacles. The scene was completely isolated from any attempts at approach. The ambush ended after 20 minutes of intense tension. Ukraine's victory was absolute. The shipment was completely neutralized, dealing a heavy blow to Russia's efforts to strengthen its air defense and electronic warfare capabilities, proving that even deep within enemy territory, no strategic asset is absolutely safe. The incident created a large and immediate gap in Russia's high-tech supply chain. The lack of these critical systems will delay planned large-scale offensive operations for months. Russia is forced to completely overhaul its military transport system. Routes, camouflage methods, and escort forces will have to be significantly reinforced, further depleting precious resources and causing logistical inefficiencies. Министерство обороны is set at investigation as the responsibility of the commanders who exposed the three-way transport plan. This destruction has caused significant underground diplomatic pressure on the relationship between Russia and China. The fact that the shipment was completely neutralized on its first transport raises deep concerns about the safety and security of the equipment provided. This could lead to greater caution in future aid and material support. For Ukraine, this victory is an important morale boost and also a powerful strategic message. It shows that the Ukrainian army relies not only on weaponry, but also on accurate intelligence, flexibility, and superior adaptability. The success at Shebekino quickly became a symbol affirming that Ukraine not only knows how to defend itself, but also has the ability to neutralize the enemy's sensitive strategic assets. Overall, the ambush not only destroyed a shipment of military equipment, it also shattered Russia's strategic confidence, forcing it to question its ability to protect its most important assets, while helping Ukraine consolidate its position in the protracted asymmetric war. Just days after the operation, Ukraine continued to receive strong support from its allies. The U.S. approved a $105 million aid package to upgrade and maintain the Patriot air defense system, one of the most modern and effective shields Ukraine possesses. The package includes upgrades to launchers, additional spare parts, auxiliary equipment, logistics, and in-depth training, helping to maintain stable operation of the air defense system amid Russia's increased attacks with missiles and UAVs. Strengthening the Patriot system is particularly important. It not only helps Ukraine better protect its airspace and strategic logistics routes, but also lays the foundation for a long-term, sustainable defense system. In the long term, this move signals a clear strategic direction. Ukraine is combining both groundbreaking special operations and the development of a modern autonomous air defense field.
East Kharkiv, October 12, 2025. The early morning fog blanketed the sunflower fields east of the Siversky Donets River. The distant hum of diesel engines echoed through the cold air. Two massive steel beasts, painted in sand camouflage, silently crawled across the dew-soaked ground. Two German-made Leopard 2 A6 tanks assigned to Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade, advancing toward Poltava. The shattered bus stop by the roadside was the scar of the previous night's artillery strike. Burnt grass turned to ash. Smoke still lingered faintly. Ahead, a thin veil of mist obscured visibility, and at the end of the dirt road, a shadow of waiting machines. Inside the lead vehicle, the commander, call sign Atlas, tapped twice on his headset rim. The small sound echoed in the cabin like a heartbeat. The thermal sight displayed glowing white shapes, figures that didn't belong to a peaceful field. On the far slope, clusters of light moved slowly, ghost-like. Atlas ordered the turret to swing to 12 o'clock. "Hold position, observe," he said in a calm, steady tone. Russian Vanguard approaching. T-90M and BMP, range 3.6. "Do not move," Atlas replied. "We're not the hunters yet. We wait for the prey." 0617. The two Leopards halted at the edge of the field. Hector, the second tank, tilted slightly left, sliding into a shallow depression to lower its profile. The driver eased the clutch. The engine rumbled softly, diesel smoke drifting like mist. The gunner checked the autoloader. The loader flexed his fingers. No one spoke another word. Through Atlas's panoramic sight, a glint flashed across the opposite ridge, the reflection of an optic. An Orlan 10 drone hovered a few hundred meters above, its lens sweeping over the field. "UAV spotted," he said curtly. "Prepare spectral smoke." Before the Orlan could transmit data, Atlas squeezed the trigger. The L/55 cannon recoiled violently, shaking the entire chassis. The DM-63 kinetic energy round streaked from the barrel, leaving a faint trail like a comet. Across the ridge, a T-90M just cresting the slope spun violently and erupted in a thick fireball. Its turret lifted skyward before crashing down in a second explosion. A flare brighter than the morning sun burst and vanished. Target hit, confirmed destroyed, the gunner said coldly. Inside the T-90's turret, ammunition wasn't a passenger, it was the driver. When ignited, it doesn't boil, it vaporizes. Death came swiftly, cleanly, and in silence. "6:24. East of the Siversky Donets River, smoke rose from a line of trees. The Russian mechanized brigade deployed 2 more BMP-3s, followed by a BTR-82 carrying infantry. From Potava, a Ukrainian artillery battery fired the first salvo, shells slicing through the air like metallic birds. Hector tilted its barrel and fired the first DM-11 round. A sharp detonation, the enemy's turret split apart like a melon. The BTR-82 swerved right, crashing into an orchard where Ukrainian artillerymen had already laid a web of sensors. Overhead, the Orlan drone was still tracking. In the rear, a swarm of Lancets came online, their cold, white cameras searching for the glowing rectangular targets across the field. Atlas ordered smoke release. Multispectral grenades burst, forming a shimmering gray-silver wall that blinded rangefinders and infrared optics alike. The driver felt the track sink into soft earth, pulling the whole left. Hector kept formation, moving parallel. Inside the fighting compartment, the loader murmured a tune. "If we make it out today, we'll drink beer in Poltava." "6:35. The battlefield of Poltava turned into a symphony of cannon fire and wind. Other T-72s kept charging forward. Atlas fired again. The shells shot out at 1,700 meters per second, piercing straight through the frontal armor and tearing apart the driver's compartment. The enemy tank reared up before collapsing. Its turret twisted as if its neck had been snapped. The entire steppe echoed with explosions, rolling across the Siversky Donets River. In the rear, the field command post in Kharkiv received a signal. 2 Leopards were holding the northern flank of Poltava against forces 10 times larger. The Russians believed it was an entire company. In truth, it was only 2 tank crews, 8 men, fighting in silence. As enemy artillery grew heavier, Atlas and Hector never stayed still. They kept moving, shifting positions every minute to evade counter-battery radar. Russian infantry, dismounted and without UAV support, wandered lost across the open fields, watched by 2 pairs of thermal eyes. Every attack was broken. Mortars tried to suppress, smoke tried to blind, artillery tried to crush, but all failed before movements precise as mathematics. The 2 Leopards, 60-ton judges, took turns delivering their verdicts, 4 shots per minute. By 07:05, smoke rose again from the ridge. A new T-90 Mo emerged among the shadows and embers. Atlas fired. The first shot grazed. The second struck dead center. The steel mass shattered. The turret flung skyward in a ball of fire. Hector took a hit from a 30mm shell. Its composite armor absorbed most of it, but the impact made the whole hull shudder. Both Leopards survived, though caked in mud and dust. The Russians threw in their reserves, pushing everything into ground already pre-targeted for strikes. Ukrainian artillery from the west bank of the Seversky Donets provided covering fire, cutting off Russian logistics. Each new assault crumbled within minutes. Every Russian vehicle turned into a heap of burning metal. By 0722, the battlefield fell quiet. The artillery faded, leaving only the wind whistling through charred halls. The two Leopards reversed into the orchard, engines idling to a whisper.
On the night of October 16, 2025, the sky over Ukraine blazed with red streaks tearing through the darkness as Russia launched one of its largest assaults in months, deploying MiG-31K fighters armed with hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. From Kharkiv to Potava and Chernihiv, a series of explosions thundered like winter storms. Windows shattered, the ground shook, and the horizon glowed red with fire. In an instant, every air raid map in Ukraine turned red, signaling a night of devastation. Yet amid the smoke and sirens, Ukraine did not collapse. It quietly prepared to strike back. Beneath the ground, inside command bunkers in Kharkiv, a coded signal was transmitted: Valkyrie, activate. At 0540 a.m., the UAV control stations came to life. Dozens of long-range drones were launched from Sumy, Dnipro, and Kyiv. They flew low, evading radar, divided into two waves. The first was decoy, the second was lethal. Within minutes, the sky over Kursk lit up. A massive fuel depot exploded, followed by a massive blaze in Belgorod, where Russia had stored armored vehicles. Satellite images showed thick columns of black smoke rising hundreds of meters high, while in Kharkiv, civilians held their breath as the first broadcast came through. Ukraine's counterstrike has begun. On the Eastern Front, two Leopard 2A6 tanks, codenamed Atlas and Hector, the legendary survivors of the Potava battle, started their engines once again. Under the thick fog of the Seversky Donets River, they received their orders to attack Russian supply convoys. Atlas spotted the first target, a convoy carrying ammunition and fuel. The first DM-63 round left the barrel, cutting through the dawn, turning the convoy into a sea of fire. Hector fired next, each shell ripping through the smoke, annihilating the entire supply line. Smoke and ashes drifted with the wind, the smell of burning oil spreading across the sunflower fields, once peaceful, now scarred. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Donald Trump signed a special order authorizing the transfer of Tomahawk Block 4 cruise missiles to Ukraine, a weapon capable of changing the course of the war. The news spread like lightning, forcing the Kremlin to call an emergency meeting overnight. 2 days later, at 03:15 a.m., Russia's Bryansk base was shaken by a massive explosion. No one claimed responsibility, but radar signatures confirmed. It was not a UAV. It was something flying low, steady, and pinpoint accurate. A Tomahawk had struck. Waves of Ukrainian drones continued to cross the border, heading for Russia's strategic targets. It was a pitch-black night, moonless, with only faint lights gliding silently before vanishing into distant explosions. By dawn, smoke pillars still rose over Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk, scars left by a swift and calculated retaliation. In Kharkov, soldiers returned to their positions, wiping mud off their armor, staring eastward. They knew the war was far from over, but for the first time in months, Ukraine had answered back with strength of its own. Amid the ashes and cold wind, Atlas turned on the radio, his voice calm but resolute. If they bring thunder, we'll answer with steel. We're not just surviving, we're rewriting history. And somewhere across the Potava plains, beneath the smoke and gray sky, a quiet truth burned bright. Ukraine may be attacked, but it will never be defeated.
If the Russians remained loyal to their linear doctrine, dense firepower but sluggish response, the Leopards embodied the new era of warfare, where information, mobility, and split-second decisions outweighed thick armor and big guns. Precision, concealment, and discipline kept their crews alive and in control of the battlefield, proving that in the age of sensors and drones, victory belongs to those who master data, timing, and composure. Thank you for watching this special Frontline report. Amid the smoke and ruins, we witnessed not only the power of weapons, but the courage and intellect of those who wield them. If today's story moved you, with its faith, resilience, or longing for peace, share your thoughts below. Every word, every prayer is a small light shining through the darkness of war.